Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. In this video, what is horizontal tea tasting? In this video, I'm going to be explaining the concepts of horizontal tea tasting. I'm going to be introducing you to our brand new Mayleaf flight boxes, and we're going to be cracking one open and doing a horizontal tea tasting for white tea. This video is going to go under the tea masterclasses and the white tea playlists. If at any point in time you enjoy this video, then make sure you hit it with a thumbs up. The more thumbs in the air, the more tea videos are going to come your way. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, then go click that button. Maybe you are somebody who is already really deep into tea and you've been tasting tea for a long time. Or maybe you're somebody that's just starting this journey and you're starting to understand the true complexity of this incredible leaf. Either way, horizontal tea tasting is one of the best ways to quickly train your tea tasting palate. So what is horizontal tea tasting? Whenever anybody gets into any kind of tasting, be it chocolate, whiskey, wine, craft beer, or in this case, tea, we often taste in isolation, and that's a good thing. We sit, we have a long session with one tea, we get to really experience it, we get to use our creativity and imagination and memory to bring in these tasting notes and develop a personal relationship and experience with that tea. But oftentimes, it's very helpful if we can compare and contrast teas, because we don't just define things by what they are, but we can also define things by what they are not and the differences between different teas. Now, we're doing this all the time naturally, so you might have a green tea and then a couple of days later you'll try a different green tea, and you will have a memory, a pretty good memory of the first green tea that you tried. However, it's never going to be as accurate, as rich, and as detailed as if you are comparing them directly next to each other. Now, whenever Celine and I go sampling for purchasing teas for Mayleaf, we always do horizontal tea tastings. Just naturally, a supplier will bring out lots of teas, the same type of tea, and we'll be tasting through them. And oftentimes you will taste one tea and you'll think, oh, that's a really good tea, I might want to buy that tea. But then after 3 or 4 other teas, you start to notice, but it doesn't have a certain brightness that this tea has, or it doesn't have a certain fruitiness that another tea has, or maybe it has more length than another tea. And so you can start to build a much richer kind of tapestry of information when you are assessing a tea by contrasting and comparing directly in the same session. Now, the key with horizontal tea tasting is that you have enough variation between the teas so that you can discern differences, but you have some form of constant, some theme. Of course, you can take a low quality chocolate scented black tea and compare it with a silver needle high quality white tea, and you'll get to know that there's high quality and low quality tea. But when you start to really dive into the detail of tea tasting, those kinds of tea tastings are not really going to give you information that's relevant to educating your palate. Instead, it's about selecting teas that are going to help to define each other. Now, when we are doing samples, obviously we are usually picking the same type of tea from multiple suppliers. So we may have 5 different suppliers with 3 different grades of Milan-Xiang Dansong, for example. So that gives us 15 different samples that we taste side by side in one session, and that really helps for us to decide which is our favorite, but also, and this is key, it educates us. Why does this sample taste different from this one? What's the difference in the processing? What's the difference in the cultivar? What's the difference in the terroir? And so through this horizontal tasting, you're not only deciding your favorites and which tea you like and which tea you like less, but you're learning about how the processing, the terroir, and all the variations and random variables within the tea producing process affect the flavor in the cup. Now, in wine, they have horizontal tasting, where you're doing what I just described, and you have vertical tasting. Vertical tasting is when you take the same wine from the same producer, but you taste according to the year. So you're tasting through the different vintages, and that's a vertical wine tasting, but we are talking about horizontal tasting here. And so you are able to not just get to know the teas better, get to define flavors and experience the difference between flavors better, but also educate your palate through an intellectual understanding of the differences in how these teas were made produced cultivars, etc. And so we are introducing our new range of Mayleaf flight boxes. And these flight boxes have been split up. We have 6 of them, but 5 of them are specifically related to horizontal tea tasting. And they are white, green, oolong, pu'er, and black tea. So what we've done is we've made the constant the tea type, and we've picked out teas that have nice differences between them so that you can start to appreciate the differences in flavor, but also start to understand how the processing has affected that flavor. So I'm going to be introducing them quickly, and then what we're going to do is we're going to crack open this white tea flight box, and we're going to be doing a horizontal tea tasting. The reason why we call them flight boxes is from the terminology used in wine tasting and also in other forms of tasting, a flight. And the etymology of this word, I've been trying to research it. It kind of, I think, it comes from a group of different things. So flight as in a group of things, like a flight of stairs or a flight of geese. Flight as in terms of travel, because you're obviously going through a journey when you're tasting it, not just through different teas from different areas necessarily, but also the journey of the differences between the different teas. And also flight relates to either vertical or horizontal as you take off and you travel. So there's I think a group of different meanings, but it all comes together to the same terminology, a flight of teas. So we've got the white tea flight selection. I'll talk to you about that in a little bit. We've got the green tea flight selection. Now the green tea flight selection, what we've done here specifically is we've picked teas from the same province in China. So you get the same type of tea from the same province, so you get to experience really how terroir and cultivar affects the flavor in the cup. And we've got, with all of these teas, we've got an extra specialty. These are all top drawer teas. We haven't skimped out and thought, let's make a beginner set. These are top drawer teas, as you will see. So in the green tea flight selection, we've got Naked Spring, gorgeous tea. I've done a video about that. I'll put a link in the description below. We've got Imperial Green, the very famous Longjing or Dragonwell green tea. And we've got this extra special Temple Blossom, which is a tea which is very, very strongly linked to the roots of Japanese tea ceremony and Buddhism. And so this is our green tea flight box. For our oolong tea flight box, we have got a good variation here. We've got Alishan Cream, which is a Taiwanese light ball rolled oolong. We've got Summer Haze, which is a Dansong, so it's a strip medium to dark oolong. So you've got a light oolong, a medium to dark oolong, you've got a ball rolled, you've got a strip, and finally, extra special, we've got a really rare tea for you. We've got the 25-year-old Tie Guanyin. So you've got an aged ball rolled oolong. Really, really incredible tea, and just for that, it's worth the box in itself. Then we have the black tea flight selection, and in this one, we've got 3 black teas, 1 from Taiwan and 2 from China. So you've got Ruby Black from Taiwan, which is an incredible black tea full of mint and menthol and cinnamon. You've got Superior Kimon, one of the oldest black teas and the original, one of the original components of the English breakfast blend, but the English breakfast blend is far, far removed from this incredibly sweet, interesting, myrcene-rich tea. And for those of you who know, you've got 1 Gongfu serving of one of the most expensive teas in the world in here. Gleaming Brow is in this box. So you've got the opportunity to do a horizontal tasting, including Gleaming Brow, if you so wish. It's an incredible tea. I've done a video about that. I'll put a link in the description below. And finally, before we get on to the white tea, we've got our pu'er tea flight selection. And in this, we've broken up some Monocle Boss cakes. So those of you who know Monocle Boss, one of our most loved raw Sheng pu'ers. So you've got Monocle Boss, and you can compare that with Black Yunnan Tour, so that's a raw compared with a cooked. So that's a real contrast in terms of the processing, raw versus cooked. And finally, we've got another raw. so that you can compare two raws together, and they're from different areas. And this is a brand new Mayleaf Pu'er. It's not been released yet, it's coming soon, and it's called Pudding Announcer. So you've got Monocle Boss, you've got Black Yunnan Tour 1998, and you've got Pudding Announcer, which is our brand new Sheng Raw 2017 Pu'er from Shigui province. And so all of these boxes have really extra special teas in them. These are all top quality teas, because what we wanted to do was to create flight selections that would educate younger palates, educate people who are just starting to move into tea in a really big way, but also gave a really powerful and incredible experience for those who are already deep into their tea journey. So those are our flight boxes. I am going to break open this white tea flight box, and I'll be right back for our horizontal tasting. Welcome to the Mayleaf White Tea Flight Box Horizontal Tea Tasting. Now I should say from the outset that if you are thinking of picking up this flight selection, you may want to hit stop now so that you can wait for it to arrive and then drink along with me. Or you may want to do one horizontal tea tasting by yourself before you watch along, so that I don't influence your tasting notes. Completely up to you. This is the white tea flight box. As you can see, 3 top drawer teas, so that you can better understand the diversity of this incredible tea type in a Mayleaf customized box. You've got the teas here. Let's just jump straight in and you can see which teas you've got. We've got our Baihao Yin Zhen, our Silver Needle, the most classic and the most well-known white tea, so you need to have that in the box. Yes, you're not having hallucinations, guys. We have included Jade Star 2, our very famous, very limited edition. And I should say from the outset again, all of these flight boxes are very limited edition items, because of the fact that the teas that we've picked in have some very special small batch teas. So this has Jade Star 2, and the exclusive tea for this flight box, which you can purchase online as a taster, but if you want a larger amount, then you need to get the flight box. It is a Yabao, or Elder White as we call it, and this is a lovely, really unique white tea from Yunnan province. So we're going to break open this box so you can see what you get inside. Let me see, do I have some scissors? Yes, so we're just going to crack open this label. A little bit of an unboxing here, so you can see what we have here. Peel off the Mayleaf sticker. You can use that somewhere. Right, so here we go. Crack this open, and there you go. What you have inside is you have a card explaining the different types of tea. I'll just show this camera. So you can see the flight card, the different types of tea, and it gives you the pertinent information to really highlight the differences between the different teas. So it's not your standard scope. This is about really highlighting the things that you should be looking out for. We've also done flavor charts so you can see our interpretation of the different flavor profiles of the tea. So you've got your Silver Needle, your Jade Star 2, and your Elder White. And then in the box itself, you have the teas. You've got a pack of Silver Needle, you've got a pouch of Jade Star 2, and a pouch of Elder White. So we are going to take all these teas. Obviously I already have them all in front of me. Saves me opening these packages, and you can take a little look. Let's start in the middle. This is our brand new exclusive to this flight box, apart from tasters. This is the Sheng Yabao. So this is a really interesting tea. This is a tea that comes from Yunnan province, and it is made from the lateral or ancillary buds of the tea plant. So when the tea trees in Yunnan province start to sprout in late winter, very early spring, they start with stem shoots. And these stem shoots are called ancillary buds, and they're different from the terminal buds, which you can see here. So this is terminal buds, and this is ancillary buds. Okay, so this is going to become the stem, and this is the terminal bud. This is turning into leaves. And so you've got the ancillary buds here. This therefore was picked very early. 18th of February 2017 is the date of picking. 18th of February, so very late winter. So it's the first shoots of the tea plant in the year, and it has to be picked sparingly, because obviously if you pick too much, you're actually really going to stress out and damage the tea tree. So you've got to pick it sparingly. This is 18th of February 2017. The cultivar is the Daiyezhong cultivar, traditionally used to make Yunnan black teas and Yunnan pu'er teas. And some people would potentially class this as a pu'er tea, but I've classed it as a white tea purely on the basis of processing. The area in Yunnan this comes from is very close to the border of Burma. This is Baoshan, Yunnan. It's right on the west side of Yunnan province. And the variety of the tea tree is the Sheng wild growing variety of tea trees. Very important. It comes from those wild tea trees which have a very particular flavor. The elevation for this is about 1,000 meters. Right, let's compare that to the terminal buds of Silver Needle. Silver Needle is a very, very well-known white tea, probably the most commonly available, but as always, there are many different grades. Again, I've done videos about how you determine the grading of Silver Needle. I'll put a link in the description below. This is the 19th of March 2017, so February and middle of March, so there's a month's difference. This is the ancillary bud, and this is the terminal bud of the plant. This cultivar is from the Dabai cultivar, very common cultivar and revered for its very furry texture and very rich taste. This comes from Zhejiang province, so Songyang, Zhejiang province. This comes from Yunnan, so again you've got a contrast in terms of province here. And the picking is, as I said, buds, and the elevation is about 450 meters, so about half the elevation of this one here. And finally, Jade Star 2, one of our most sought after teas. This is an aged white tea from 2009. This is the same cultivar as this one here, so this is the Dabai cultivar. It's a different province. This is from Fujian province, this is from Zhejiang province. And this is a picking of buds and leaves, so it's a combination of Mudan and Shomei, and this has been aged since 2009. If you haven't seen the video about Jade Star 2, I'll put a link in the description below so you can find out more about this really exciting tea. So these are our 3 teas. Now we're going to start our horizontal tea tasting. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing our 10-step tea tasting process. If you haven't found out about our 10-step tea tasting process, I'll put another link in the description below so you can check that out when you have a chance. So we're going to be doing the 10-step tasting, but I have to say that I'm going to be doing this a lot quicker than I would hope you guys do it. You know, this is really one of the most rich tea tasting experiences that you can have. I recommend that you reserve at least 2 to 3 hours and hopefully get some friends around so you can share in it. You're using really high quality tea. You know, you're using gongfu servings of really high quality tea here. You don't want to waste it. You want to really make this a really rich, memorable experience. So take your time. Please don't do it as quickly as I'm going to be doing it now. Right, so first of all, let's look at the eyes dry leaf. You can see here already real differences. You've got the aged white with its larger leaves, nice kind of cigar brown, larger leaves and some white furry buds, but very different picking to these guys here, which are only buds. So that's one of the big differences. You can also see the color difference that aging makes. So this gives you a really direct comparison of how age affects the color, and also the fact that it's starting to be broken up, because this the aging process does break up the leaves, plus then it's pressed into a cake, and obviously we've had to open up that cake. So there is inevitable breakage of the leaves here compared to these guys here, which are full bud. But then even comparing these two buds, very, very different. So you can see the difference between the terminal bud and the ancillary bud. The ancillary bud having a lot more of a kind of cone shaped to it. They are both very, very furry. I don't know if you can see, I'll bring these, hopefully not spill them, to the camera here so you can see the difference. They're both very, very furry. They are slightly different color. The Elder White or Yabao has kind of interesting gold and pink hues to it, whereas the Silver Needle is that classic green grey color. Beautiful, nice pastel colors, both of them. So Eyes Dry Leaf, definite differences. Again, take your time, really explore the differences. Don't rush it like I am. Right, so now let's brew. And I guess one of the questions that you're going to be asking is, how do I brew 3 teas at once? Obviously it helps if you've got identical teaware. Obviously it helps if you have a water tray, but you don't need it. You can do as simple a thing as bowl brewing. So you can just take 3 bowls, even if they're not totally identical. You can put the leaf in, you can put the right amount of water to leaf. That's important. All the brewing instructions are written on the packs, so make sure you use those as a starting point. So get the right water to leaf ratio, so weigh up your leaf and measure the amount of water. But you can bowl brew, so you can brew in 3 different bowls and then just strain off into cups if you wanted to. Obviously, if you've got teaware, Gong Fu teaware, then even better, and you can brew in identical teaware, or if you've got 3 different gaiwans or 3 different pots, as long as they're the same material. I think that's important. Don't start mixing clay and porcelain together, because obviously the teaware is going to have, the material is going to have an effect on the texture and taste of the tea. So what we want to do now is we want to move on to the second phase, which is the nose of the dry leaf. So what I'm doing is quickly putting some water, hot water, into these gaiwans, pouring it away immediately, and the purpose is just to heat up the teaware so that when I pour these leaves in, I'm going to get a good strong aroma as the heat starts to release some of the aromas in the tea. And isn't this great? I love this. I love this so much that I can sit with 3 of the same type of tea and really explore how the differences in the cultivar, the processing, the terroir, all of those things, the age, affects the nuances of the experience. So what we have here on the back of our card are our tea tasting notes. Again, it's up to you whether or not you want to use these. You might want to keep the card this side up, so that you don't read our tasting notes, so that you're not overtly affected by these. So let's get the nose in here. So you're getting this incredible tang, like a kind of appley vinegar, blackcurrant. It's got some cream, but it's like more burnt, more caramel notes, less of the creaminess that I expect from this one. Yeah, there it is. So this one is much brighter, much more spring-like. You've got the creaminess of cantaloupe, melons, but there is also a tang here, and that's actually interesting because I hadn't really, in isolation, I hadn't noticed that similarity. So it's not just about noticing differences, it's also really about noticing similarities and using one tea that accentuates it so that you can notice it in another one. Definitely more tang, kind of apple cider vinegar, and red berries, and nuttiness. Much softer, sweeter, creamier, but definitely got that tang still there. This one totally different. There are elements that are similar in this, so you're getting that soft, furry. The soft, furry, downy texture of this lends itself, in my experience, to that creamy, meadowy aroma. But this has got more elderflower, more fruits, direct fruits, gooseberries, elderflower. It's also got an interesting kind of not woody, but like a wood workshop or a clay workshop. You know, if you walk into a wood workshop or a clay workshop, there's a particular smell that comes from working those kinds of materials. So the aroma of the dry leaf, very, very different, but definite similarities between them. So I'm going to give these guys a quick rinse. Again, I'm doing it a lot faster than I would expect you to. Take your time with this. This horizontal tea tasting is meant to be a truly one of those kind of highlights in your tea tasting diary. It's not often that you can sit with 3 top drawer teas like this and get to experience them side by side. Okay, the look of the leaves, so different, incredible. Right, let's get our nose in here. Much warmer, much nuttier. Nuts, Brazil nuts. I'm also getting fruit. Let's smell this one. Oh, wow. Luscious, juicy. It's got some of the woody notes that are in here, but nowhere near the level of nuttiness, nowhere near the level of intense fruit that's coming out here. Here it's more understated, really gentle, but powerful. Again, I'm getting melons, getting cantaloupe melons. I really wish I could spend time and sit just with my nose in these two for the next 10 minutes, but I'm conscious of your time too. So let's move on to the yabao, or the elder white. Oh, the fragrance coming off here is intense elderflower. Cut wood. There is nut, but the nut is a different kind of nut. The nut is like raw almonds, and so if these were Brazil nuts, these ones, because they're not aged, they're more in the kind of raw nut territory. Oh, addictive smell, very, very strong, humid smell. Really, you can smell the difference that terroir makes. This is really, really interesting because you have the white tea here, both buds here, but this just smells more tropical. It smells like it's from further south, hotter region, more subtropical than the tea from Zhejiang province, where it's cooler and fresher. So you can smell directly how the temperature affects the aroma. And this, oh, my mouth is salivating. Right, so now we're going to go for our first brew. And for most of our flight boxes, the temperature of the water is going to be there or thereabouts the same. For this one, we recommend 95 degrees for this, which is about 205, and we recommend about 90 for this, that's 195. So there's a slight difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to brew up this kettle to 95. I'm going to brew these two, and then I'm going to put a splash of cold water in just to bring it down a bit, and then brew this, and we'll be right back. I brewed these teas according to the instructions on the packs. I recommend that you use those as starting points and then feel free to adapt. So different temperatures slightly and slightly different times. The liquors are now in the Guangdao base, but I just want to say that the smell, the combined bouquet of all of these teas is an incredible smell, very, very unique. It's giving me ideas for tea blends actually, but we won't get onto that. Again, take your time over this. I'm rushing through this just to give you an instructional. This is really about taking your time. I would love to spend more time just smelling those leaves before we get into the tasting. Okay, so this one here is Jade Star 2. Ooh, extra little leaf that decided to join us. This one here is Silver Needle. And this one here is the Elder White. Wow. Or Yabao, Sheng Yabao. So look at the palette of colors that we have here. Really, really nice. You can see the aged one here, and you can see that the lightest is this Yabao, this ancillary bud tea from Yunnan. Very, very pale, pale green, yellow. Really, really nice. Kind of almost got like a kind of clear absinthe quality to it. That green but very, very ultra clear, diamond clear. Then you have the silver needle. Silver needle is moving more into the peachy kind of colors, peachy notes. And finally the jade star, much more whiskey-like, pale whiskey, an orange color. And you can see the result of aging and also the type of picking. Right, so now we get on to tasting. So first of all, we're going to be doing it according to texture. So let's try to forget about taste. Let's just work on texture. Thick, rich, rounded. I'm not going to talk about taste. Similarly thick, actually. Surprisingly, actually maybe even thicker than the Jade Star 2. Maybe even more syrupy, more velvet. Perhaps it's those downy hairs. You might notice that when you have more hairy, furry tea buds, it tends to have a more viscous texture. Bear in mind, I did not put these two through the filter. I did put this one through the filter because it's broken leaf, so I want to capture everything, even though one little leaf decided to join the party. So thicker, definitely thicker than similar, but there's a certain level of a different viscosity in this one. Let's taste the, let's check out the texture, I should say, of the Elder White. Thinner, fresher, certainly not thin, medium textured tea. Really good drying quality, really nice, refreshing, brisk note to it. Okay, so we have gone through texture again. I would prefer to do it multiple times, but let's now move on to the taste. I'm going to start with Elder White here, and this is what I recommend you do. You know, if you're doing this in a group, obviously you're going to be using smaller cups, so you serve to a variety of people, and you can either give them 3 cups each and serve 3 and then they can choose, or you can just taste all together in unison so that you're all tasting the same teas, you're all talking about the same teas. I kind of prefer that way of doing it, but eventually it will become a free-for-all. After you go through the different infusions, everyone's going to have their favorites and they're going to want more of a certain tea. That's fine. But at least at the beginning of this horizontal tea tasting, I recommend that you kind of implement some sort of structure. But I'm by myself, so I can make up my own rules. Here we go. It's got, the first thing I notice is it's got a real gingery spiciness. Ginger root or galangal spiciness. It's got elderflower in spades, lots and lots of elderflower. Very fruity. It's also got some apricot, and it's got this forest taste to it. What I was talking about, alluding to in the smell or the aroma of the leaf, you can really taste the forest, the humid forest. It's got pine notes to it, like a pine forest note to it. Definitely pine, elderflower, some gingery spiciness, and I can feel that spiciness coming down my throat, just kind of resting here. If you've had some ginger, you've just kind of bitten some ginger, it just tends to stay here, a slight spicy note to it. Silver needle. Much more floral. Less of the fruits. The fruits are there, those peachy notes, those melon notes that we were talking about throughout the aroma are still there, but I'm getting more of the meadow, I'm getting more of cut grass or slightly dried grass, hay, summer meadows. Really like the beginning of summer, you know, those first summer days. It's not the first spring days where you go, okay, you know, there is hope, spring is coming. when you get that first really nice summer's day, and you're in the countryside and you've got that meadowy smell, the first blossoming summer meadow flowers are coming out. That's the taste, and they're starting to collect hay. It's those kinds of notes. This is much more forest, it's much more humid, it's much more tropical. Again, Jade Star 2. So deep, rich, complex. It's got some apples. It's got this, what is it? Yeah, we talked about it in the previous video. I'm getting this dried mint. I'm getting a spiciness, but it's not a ginger spiciness. It's much more of the terpenes of cannabis, those cannabis spicy notes. Nuttiness, caramel, dark caramel. Rich, deep, rounded. So what we're experiencing here as we're tasting is we're starting to say, okay, age, definitely age brings out richness, roundness. It brings out more of those deep notes, less of the high notes. The fruity notes become more cooked. Whereas the young teas, the unaged teas, are brighter. But even within this, you're looking at the terminal bud versus the ancillary bud. You're looking at Zhejiang province versus Yunnan province. You're looking at the Dabai cultivar versus the Dayezhong cultivar. And you're looking at wild tea trees here. And you can certainly taste, this one tastes very refined. As you taste teas more, you start to almost forget the tasting notes and think more in terms of personality. Lucy, those of you who watch YouTube know Lucy. She's very good at assigning personalities to tea. Less the tasting notes and more the personalities. And here you can taste the elegance, the imperialism. This is Zhejiang province. This is all about the right pickings, delicacy. It's about yes, this kind of imperial tribute tea. Everything has to be perfect, and you can totally taste that sentiment and that personality being imbued within the liquor. Rich, thick, floral, elegant, nothing spiky, all really rounded, all really in check, nicely balanced. Whereas Yunnan, the rebel province in China, you know, far away from Han Chinese rule, more tropical, more spiky, more in your face, more rebellious, wild, has a wild taste to it. So you can really taste how these provinces, with all of the various factors in soil, in cultivar, in elevation, all of those things that make up the personality of a province, also make up the personality of the tea. Because let's not forget that we are a product of our environment. I am a product of my household, but I'm also a product of London. And no doubt if I was born or brought up from the same parents in a different place in the world, or even a different place in the UK, I would be a slightly different person. And it's the same in everything, including tea. So, very, very interesting, spicy. Got that galangal, that northern Thailand use of galangal and those heavy spices used in the cooking. Definitely got that in the tea. Gorgeous tea. This one, gorgeous in a different way. Elegant. Perfection. It's the perfect, it's the epitome of what you'd expect from a white tea. Thick, rich, floral, summery. And finally, the aged tea. The metaphors continue. Through the aging process, things become more rounded. You know, you have more length, more the length is definitely much longer. These ones are good. The arrival is strong. The main event is very, very powerful. And then it leaves you with a soft, gentle aroma or finish in the mouth, or a lingering taste. Whereas the Jade Star 2 definitely stays longer, breathing through the nose. You're getting the caramel, you're getting the richness, you're getting all of those deeper, darker notes. I'm not going to eat the leaf. Right, so we've done one infusion. Now, these teas will give you multiple infusions. So please keep going with your friends. Please taste the differences as the infusions unfold, especially when you're looking at young teas versus aged teas. Notice how many more infusions the aged teas give you. Okay, let's have a sniff of the empty cup. We've only had one infusion in these cups, so it's not going to be as strong as if you smelt it after the third, fourth, or fifth infusion, but I'm sure it'll still be there. Definitely. Ooh, icing sugar. Icing sugar. You know how icing sugar when you break open a pack of icing sugar and you get that cloud of icing sugar, it's not just sweet, but it's got that powdery smell, like an almost talcum powder kind of smell to it. So sweet talcum icing powder. This one here, oh, still a bit of tea in here. Fruitiness is starting to come out a bit more. Very floral, very, very much like the taste. Maybe a little bit more spice to it, a little bit of white pepper creeping in. But very gentle. Again, really the most archetypal white tea, gentle elegance. Zhejiang province is one of the heartlands of kind of imperial tribute teas. And finally, Jade Star from Fujian province. So another area which produces really elegant, they really pride themselves on perfection, but a little bit more tweaked. They have, you know, in Fujian province, you've got all of those rock oolongs, you've got the white teas, you've got the tieguanyins. That province is very, very much an area where there's a little bit more experimentation, I would say. Oh, the smell of this empty cup. I could sit here for the next 10 minutes just sniffing this empty cup. I'm getting the caramel, I'm getting the tang. So I'm getting a combination of molasses, treacle, some nuts, some apple cider vinegar, a little bit of the herbaceous notes, some woody notes, but it's that sweet, sweet, nutty caramel combined with the tang of some sort of cidery apple aroma, which makes it so addictive. So we've done ice dry leaf, nose dry leaf, nose wet leaf. We've looked at the liquor, we've tested the texture, we've tasted the tea, we've done the smell of the empty cup. We do need to take a look at these leaves, and we need to talk about the finish. So the finish is going to be harder to assess because of the fact that we are tasting 3 teas. So, you know, when you're tasting one tea, it's much easier to assess the finish. And what I mean by the finish is not just how it makes your mouth feel directly after swallowing, but also any kind of lingering aromas, lingering taste. And what I'm getting now, if I breathe through the nose, is it's being dominated a little bit by the Jade Star 2, as you'd expect. So in the horizontal tasting, you do lose out a little bit in terms of your interpretation of the finish. The strongest tea tends to dominate. However, as you start to practice this horizontal tea tasting, I've found when I've tasted, say, 20 samples of a tieguanyin, you start to pick up very quickly the moment you swallow. If you leave it just 1 minute before you move on to the next one, you can judge the finish and if there's any lingering huigan or aroma afterwards. You can judge that quite quickly if you leave enough space, maybe a minute between each tea. Here you go, take a look at the wet leaves. Pastel green and gold, a little bit of pinks and reds in there, and you can see this is the ancillary bud. You can see that the shape is very, very different to the terminal bud. Right? It doesn't have this multi-layered cone, pine cone kind of shape. You can see the difference in the color, much more clay green on the silver needle, and this bright yellow green pastel color for the elder white. And then if I take a look at this one, you can see very, very different. Autumnal leaves, very kind of mulched leaves looking. Much less whole leaf because it is a aged tea that was in cake form. But a very nice, deep kind of auburn browns, nice shades of autumn. So there you go. We've looked at the wet leaves. We've done nine of the 10-step tasting. The final one is body sensation, and again, in a horizontal tea tasting, that's impossible to judge. And this is where isolated tea tastings are better, so you can really get to know how the chemical components within the tea affect your body sensation and if it has any psychoactive effects. So body sensation and mouth finish are less accurate within a horizontal tasting, but I hope that this video has shown you that tasting tea side by side really can give you so much information about what you like, what you dislike about a tea. You can also get information about how the processing may affect certain things. You can start to see patterns, or you can start to make up your own conclusions that then you can, or hypotheses that you can then test out. So for example, we're saying that furry tea buds produce thicker tea liquor. Well, that's kind of been proven wrong when I look at this one, which it has a thinner texture despite the fact that it's very rich and thickly covered in fine downy hairs. So maybe it's because this is a terminal bud. Maybe then what's in the terminal bud that's different to the ancillary buds that's bringing about this thickness? How does aging affect thickness? How does aging affect finish? You know, as you start to do these horizontal tastings, and with the flight boxes that we've provided, we're trying to give you the right selection so that you've got enough variables that you can ask those kinds of questions, but not so far wide apart that it's not giving you any real meaningful information that is going to help to educate your palate. So pick up a flight box, try it yourself, the horizontal tea tasting method. For pros and beginners alike, for beginners, this is an incredible way to really supercharge your palate education. Really, really great. But definitely for you pros out there, and you know the quality of these teas in these Guy ones here. For you pros out there, it's going to be hopefully a very immersive and educative and enjoyable social experience. That's it, tea heads. If you made it to the end of this video, then please give it the thumbs up. Check out our YouTube playlists and let us know if there are any videos that you would like us to make. If you're ever in London, then come visit us in Camden to say hi and taste our wares. If you have any questions or comments, then please fire them over. Other than that, I'm Don May. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags. Keep drinking the good stuff and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.